It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
A strong, positive sense of self-esteem is your first step to anything you wish to accomplish. Yet too often, when we attempt to leave our comfort zone, we have that chorus of inner critics inside our heads, the itty-bitty shitty committee, as I like to call mine, whispering self-sabotage, doubt, and untrue trash in our ear. This podcast celebrates women who rise above and move beyond any self-doubt and old, outmoded, limiting beliefs. Women who have reconnected with who they truly are, that gorgeous, talented, fabulous gift to the world who deserves recognition and unconditional love. My hope is that their insights inspire all of you to do the same. You know, the most beautiful thing any woman can wear is confidence. Here on Confidence in Bloom with the Divas That Care Network, I, Tina Spolatini, speak with women now secure in their own self-confidence so we can learn from their stories of how they found themselves and became the magnificent role models they are to us all now. Today I'm talking with Heather Black, a spicy Carolina infusing a dash of Southern charm into the neon world of Las Vegas. Heather is the driving force behind Phoenix Calibrations, a venture created to empower heart-centered entrepreneurs and nonprofits to impact more lives with SOP, strategic, organized, profitable events and speaking engagements. A firm believer in David Allen's wisdom that you can do anything but not everything. Heather guides her clients to achieve the everything of their event and speaking goals. Heather is not just another run-of-the-mill consultant and event planner. She's the detailed wrangler your dreams have been sending out search parties for. With her infectious energy and knack of transforming chaos into coordinated awesomeness, Heather turns your event dreams into impactful experiences. Welcome, Heather. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you today, Tina?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. It's nice and hot here. And you're in Las Vegas, so it's always hot there.
I feel like it's always hot, but it's been especially hot the last couple of weeks. I'm ready for monsoon season, and we'll at least get a break in the afternoons with some rain.
Yeah, but it doesn't last long, does it? I know the rain, I often go to Phoenix, and I know the rain comes really hard and fast, and then it's gone. And then you have like about half an hour of coolness.
Yeah. And it's more like a sauna outside at that point. But it's just nice to get that break from, the 115, 120 degree heat we've been having. So
yeah, that's pretty hot. That's like, I don't know what that is actually. It's about 35, I think, here in Canada. That's crazy. But yeah. You're in the desert, so you have to expect that, right?
You do have to expect that. Yes, you do.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me, or tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and the Carolina girl coming into the neon world of Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's that was a culture shock. I moved to Las Vegas. I lived in South Carolina all my life. I'm a pure Carolina girl, and moved to Las Vegas in 2012. So I've been here almost 12 years because all of my family have moved here. And it is quite the culture shock to come from, the Bible Belt into Sin City, just where everything's 24/7. It was shocking to me the first time I went to Walgreens picking up my prescriptions and they were selling alcohol. And I was like, I don't know that you should be selling alcohol, in a drugstore. I mean, I guess it's drugs, but that just seems like counterintuitive to me. Pick up your antidepressants, grab your vodka, let's go.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I never thought about it like that. So it's, well, that's what they say. Like they call it Sin City because basically everything is legal. And so Carolina is like, it's known for its like Bible. We called them in my day Bible thumping, right? Where everybody was religious. Everyone went to church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So for a long, long time, I mean, I can remember we used to have what was called blue laws, where everything except for like essential places were closed on Sunday. You did not sell alcohol on Sunday. So I used to work in a grocery store, and so we would have to block off the wine and the beer and but we always sold in the grocery store was wine and beer. We didn't sell liquor at that point in time. But you would have to go with the little brooms and stick them through the handle, and we wouldn't sell alcohol. So to come here, now that's changed. Now they do. Now the stores are open, but everybody went to church, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. That was what you did as a family. And so to come here where you could buy alcohol 24/7, everything's open 24/7. But now I'm spoiled, right? If I ever went anywhere where the streets rolled up at 7, 8 o'clock at night, I wouldn't know what to do because now if I get wild hair at 9 o'clock at night, I want some ice cream. I can go get ice cream because there's like 5 places to go. But so I guess now I've adjusted to that part of it. And I mean, I don't care when people drink their alcohol. It was just such a culture shock to come from somewhere where you just didn't do that to it's just a free for all.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, I go to Vegas often. Sometimes I feel like it's too often. I am not a partier though. So I don't partake in any of the Vegas life, really. I mean, we stay on the strip. I have a few friends that live there, and we have a few cousins that live there, but we don't really do the party thing, but I love it. I just love going. And I think the big thing with Vegas is you can go for 3 days and feel like you've been away, for a month because you see so much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably have seen it all now, right? All the back ends on the strip. And, like I noticed my friend, she, I tell her I'm at this hotel, can you come meet me? And she knows exactly where to park, how long it's going to take her to get there and everything. And I'm thinking, oh, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, it's very different. And there's a lot to do in Vegas that doesn't involve casinos and alcohol
Of
and
course.
gambling, and all those things. The desert is beautiful. There's just a ton of options of things to do here. So people come here all the time just to not necessarily to party. But yeah, you have to learn, and the traffic has gotten so bad. Almost every single road I feel like is under construction. I'm like, does every road in Las Vegas have to be under construction? We do one road and then move to the next road, but like I feel like every road is under construction, but there's just so much growth happening here, and it's so exciting because it just means there's more opportunities for more people and there's more things to do and we'll attract more people. But we got to get through that growth phase of where everything has to be built first, right?
Right. And we've seen it all, right? I remember the very first time I went to Dubai. That was back in 2005, I think. And yeah, it was always big, but I went back in 2008, I think. It was like another 5 or 7 years later. And I thought, oh my goodness, is this the same place?
Yeah.
It just changes. And because of the growth, I mean, when you've got people to fill up the space, you got to make the space hold the people, right? And so,
Right.
yeah, I know that change. It's like, whoa, when you're living in it, you see the construction, you don't necessarily see the growth, right?
Right.
You just see the hectic part of it. So tell me about your business. And it's called, your business called Phoenix Collaborations.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my business is about 2 years old. It was not something I ever thought that I would do myself. I never had that on my radar, but God said I needed to start my own business. And so after arguing with him for about 2 years about that, I finally decided to leave corporate world. I work primarily in nonprofits and love the nonprofit space, but there's just a lot of challenges in nonprofit. And I was tired of working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. I wanted a little bit more balance in my life. And so I decided to become an entrepreneur because that apparently creates balance, I guess.
So they say.
So they say, and anybody starting a business or thinking about starting a business, it's a beautiful journey. You learn so many things about yourself. You learn so many things about what you're capable of. But it is not for the faint of heart because it will really test your abilities. And I look at who I was almost 2 years ago when I started this journey and who I am now, and I'm like, I never thought I would be doing these things, but I started this business to hone in on and capitalize on the 24 years of experience I have doing events, but to really help those creative, visionary entrepreneurs and small businesses really get strategic, organized, and profitable with their events and speaking engagements because there's just so many people that are struggling to do it in a way that's growing their business and where they're seeing profit and they're not organized. And to just really help them hone in on that so that they can grow their business in an authentic way, but in a way that is structured and supportive and profitable because that's the key to being successful, right? Is to make a profit, to generate that revenue for your business. And I just love it. I love my clients that I work with. They have big messages and big goals, and I love supporting them in that. And just helping people, because events are so transformative and you can really change the world with events. And so I just love being in that one-on-one space, helping people change the world and make it a better place.
I love that. So what kind of events would you kind of plan for, like a typical entrepreneur? Because I mean, let's face it, every person has a different business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's coaches, there's consulting, which I know are two different things. What kind of events would like the average entrepreneur hold that would sort of promote their business and bring in revenue?
There's so many options. Education events are one of my favorite to help people organize, just because every single entrepreneur, whether you're brick and mortar or whether you're in the online space, you are an expert in your field and you have information that you can share with people about that space. And I love helping them figure out what kind of education event to have. And it just grows your authority, it builds your trust, they build a connection with you. And then when they need your services, the first person they think of is, oh, I remember I talked to Tina that day. She had that event. I want to talk to her more about that. And so it really just builds that authenticity and trust with your audience, and it grows your audience. People might have never heard of you, might come to your event. You can do customer appreciation. You can do a social media challenge. If you're a brick and mortar, you could do a scavenger hunt and collaborate with some other businesses, local businesses in the area to do a collaborative event, fundraising events for your community, particularly if there's a family that's in need or there's a charity that needs some support that you know of. Again, you can collaborate with other business owners and just draw the community in and grow it in a very authentic and successful and meaningful way.
Okay, so you kind of answered a question that I was going to ask you.
Oh,
So
shoot.
when you say events, you don't necessarily mean like a big venue that requires like, like a meal and, music or some kind of entertainment. You're talking like, even small events like fundraisers. Like I want to, like, for say a neighbor that I have that has passed away, and I want to, raise some kind of money or, put a basket together for, the spouse and the family. You're talking about little events, not that they're little, but smaller events like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
100%. I mean, events can be as small as 8 people all the way up to, I mean, I've worked on events of 15,000 people or more, but I mean, the scale of how large you go is basically just limited by the space that you have. But absolutely. And I highly recommend that you start small. Don't try to do the big 100-person, 150-person, because your audience might not be ready for that. And the first time you do it, keep it small so that you can figure out all the things that you need to do and you can get comfortable in that space, right? Because it's going to be something new. If you've never done an event before, there's going to be some things you're like, I had no idea. And so when you start small, it's really easier to manage those, oh, I had no idea moments, as opposed to when you have 150 people. Yeah. So
And
yeah,
that makes
absolutely.
sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So I'm a little bit like my eyes are wide open now because I'm thinking, I see event planning and I automatically assume like wedding planner, right? Like that's where my mind goes. So to me, being Italian, weddings are big, right? And
Right.
so, I did my own wedding, but I know today it's a normal thing to have a wedding planner. And I just assumed, like I went there where, that's where you would get an event planner because the small ones you can do on your own. But you're telling me that I could hire you for even just a small speaking, or not even, I wouldn't call it a speaking engagement, but if I wanted to have like, some kind of a garden party with my clients, you could help that. You could help me with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key, if you want to do that, is to make sure. And one of the things that I do now is I'm actually adding consulting for people that don't have the budget to pay me to do it for them, right? Or they want the experience of doing it themselves, but they want to make sure they do it right. So I can do consulting with individuals and help them make sure they set it up with the proper timeline and checklist. So you make sure that you've covered everything that you need to do to make sure that you've budgeted properly. Because a lot of times that's where I see some of the biggest mistakes is people don't budget for their events properly. And then they can't even determine if they're profitable or not because they didn't track their expenses. They didn't include everything. I don't know. And so it's really important before you even start planning that you do some budget work. And I love getting in those details and helping people get set up with that proper foundation. You have a checklist to work from, you have a budget to work from. So at the end, you can go back and say, okay, this is what worked, this didn't work, and here's the profit that we made or didn't make. Hopefully you made some, but how can we make it better next time? What did we learn?
Oh, that's great. So that's okay. So that is excellent. That, I mean, there's someone there to help me with that, right? Because I
Yes.
wouldn't know. Like I would just, okay, so I need this, and this, right? And unless I'm doing many over, a course of a year, let's say, I'm not really going to know what I need and what I don't need. And so okay, how do you start that? Like like if I wanted to, let's go with the garden party, because as that came off my mouth, off my tongue, I'm like, hey, I kind of like that idea, right? So
That was fun.
where do we start? Yeah, it does sound fun.
So we would start with sitting down and talking about kind of get an idea of who your audience is, what your vision is, and we'll talk about, how big do you want this to be? Is this going to be a garden party for 30 people? Is it going to be a garden party for 100 people? And what do you see? Tell me your vision for the day, right? How long is this? Is there food? Are there goodies? And we would just walk through the whole process and kind of create the vision. And then from that vision, I would kind of start building out what you need to do to make sure it happens. I would say, okay, how long do you have to plan? And a garden party, I would hope that you would have probably 4 to 5 months at a minimum to plan, but we could probably do it in less than that. But then I'll build out that timeline and checklist for you based on your timeline, and then we'll start working on the budget. How much do you want to spend on food and beverage? Are you charging a registration fee? Where's your profit coming from? Is this just an appreciation event and it's just going to come from repeat customers? They're going to come back because they feel appreciated? Or are you funneling them into, so basically I would ask you a whole lot of questions and then we would start doing
Right. And so, yeah, because you need to know that. You need to know like how I'm going to relate with all the people that are there, and what does it look like? What's the outcome going to be? Right. That
right.
makes sense. That totally makes sense.
And it's even more, not even just necessarily for me, but a lot of times when I start asking these questions of my clients, they're like, oh, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Okay, well, we need to think about it because we have to include this. And so it really gets them diving deep into that event to figure out exactly what they want so that we can build it and create their vision.
I love that. I'll be honest, I'm excited. I'm kind of thinking my brain's kind of going a little forward here. So let's go back to you give the checklist. Okay, so you need to do this, and this. Do you do the contacting of the services that are required? Like, for example, like if you need to rent chairs and tables, or like the catering and that kind of stuff. Is that your part of the job? Like, or are you just telling me you need to do this, and this?
It depends on what you're looking for. If you want to pay me to do that, then so I kind of have there's kind of three ways to work with me. We can do consulting where I just kind of help you set it up and then you go do the thing. And then you can come back and I'll sell them in packages of hours so we can come back and we can check and make sure along the way that you're on track, right? That if there's any obstacles, I can help you troubleshoot that. And then there's done with you and done for you. And then the done with you and done for you, we just done with you. Obviously, we split it up, right? You tell me what you want me to do and you go do what you're supposed to do. And then I just kind of project management and make sure it all gets done. And then done for you is this is what I want. And then I go with it and I book your tables, I book your chairs, I make sure everybody knows where they're supposed to be. I communicate with your guests if that's what you want me to do. So yeah, it can be as little or as much as you want me to do.
Whoa, I love that. And this you started just from like being in a nonprofit, because that's what you were doing. You were planning all these kinds of events. Oh, I love it. What kind of entrepreneurs do you work with the most?
I love working with high energy, high impact creatives and visionaries that just don't want to be in the details. Are those it's kind of two buckets that I pull from. are those solopreneurs, small businesses that want to get started in events, but they want to make sure they do it properly, or they've been struggling and they just need some help getting that foundation set for them. Those are kind of my two buckets that I love working with. But I love working with people that are positive, high energy, and really want to make an impact, a positive impact in the world.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. I want to talk about women in business.
Yes.
So are your clients mainly women?
Mainly women. They are mainly women. I do work with, I have one male client right now that I work with. I'm not opposed to working with other males, but they're just primarily women. That's the space that when I network that I tend to attract. And I think that it's a sweet spot because as women, it's so important that we support one another in business.
I
You know,
agree.
we're better together. That's just
Yeah,
real life. There's no competition. There's enough for all of us. And when we work together and we collaborate and we support one another, we all get better and we rise together. And so it's so important for me to support women business owners in what I
I
do.
love that. I love that. So you have seen women that are just starting out as entrepreneurs, and you've also seen women who have been around the block a few times with their business. What is the main thing that you find in common with these women?
We take on too much.
I laugh because I wasn't expecting that, but I totally agree because I think that's just a woman characteristic.
I think it's just a woman characteristic. And, one of my favorite quotes, and it's on my website, is you can do anything, but not everything. And I think as women, particularly, we think we're supposed to do everything. And then what happens is we end up in that overwhelm and the chaos. And particularly when it comes to events, it can happen really, really quickly if you get behind on your plan because you have a hard and fast date, right? That date is this. And there are things that have to be done in a certain fashion to meet that date. And when you get behind and you're in the weeds, it just gets harder and harder to get out from under that. And so I love coming in and bringing, I like to say I bring peace and order where there was chaos and overwhelm. So
Right.
don't you
Yeah.
don't have to be overwhelmed. You don't have to do everything. Stay in your zone of genius. You have an attorney, you have an insurance agent, you have a social media manager, right? Why wouldn't you have an event planner if you're doing events?
Right. I agree. I agree. How do you walk a woman who is very stubborn through, I want, like, I need you, I need your help, but I want to do this and I want to do this. I want, like, because I'm going to assume, because I know myself, yeah, I'll hire someone, but then I'm like, no, 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 I want to do that. I want to do that. Right. And then the next thing I know, I have pretty much everything on my list that I want to do, and now I'm like, okay, so I don't know what to give you because I want to be a part of that, right? How do you walk a woman through that? Because that takes, I mean, really, it takes confidence, and it takes a little bit of, I don't know, the word's not coming to me, but that ability to release it and let it go, like let someone else take it on, right? How do you walk a woman through that?
It sometimes requires a lot of patience and just, offering and being available to help them. And when they get to that point where they're like, I can't do this, you can be like, okay, well, I can take it from you and take it in a way that makes them feel like not that they failed, but that they can release that and go focus on something that is going to be more powerful for them, right? Go and support your clients. Go and spread your message with your speaking engagements. And please let me do this for you so that you can reach more people because I really just want to support you in that way. It's not that you're failing. It's not that you can't do it. It's not that you don't know how to do it. It's not any of those things. But why should you have to? That's what I'm here for. Why do you have to do all these things? If it doesn't bring you joy and it brings me joy to be in the details and manage all those logistics, like that is my happy spot. I was working on a budget for a client this morning and I was like, I just love this. Oh, no.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Every time I talk to her about it, she's like, I haven't even looked at it. I don't know. I can't. And I'm like, oh, this is so fun, right? So let
yeah.
me have the joy and you go do what brings you joy. And sometimes you just have to be patient and just pry it out of their hands because it's hard as women to let go sometimes. It's hard to say, it's not even about I can't do this because of course you can. Of course you can. But if it doesn't bring you joy, why are you? You don't have to do everything. There are
Exactly.
plenty of women to support one another. So let somebody support you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, running a business, there's a lot of stuff that you don't think about when you are first starting, right? And so now, like, especially if you're, creating an event like this to, bring in clients, right? Because now there's a lot more involved, right? Because you honestly, I know when I started my business, and to this day, I mean, I'm 5 years in, and there's things I wouldn't even think about already. Someone's pointing this out and that, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that, right? And so I'm sure, like, there's women that are coming to you to have an event, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to fit that in, right? And so
Right.
where you come in, right? That's where you're like, okay, well, let me deal with this. Let me handle it for you. And then the next time around, if you choose to do it on your own, at least you have like a checklist that
Right.
I'm going to provide for you, right? Because you're going to provide that list and everything is going to be the same. It might be a little bit different, but the checklist should be the same. Like
Right.
invites went out, who's doing this and who's doing, yeah. Oh, I love that. That sounds fun. Actually, it actually sounds fun. Here, like I said, I thought event planning was big events. And so to me, I'm like, that's a lot of work, right? I remember
Yeah.
like my wedding, and that was 30 years ago, right? Not 30, not quite 30, but we're getting there, right? But it was a long time ago. And so I look at that and I think, I don't know if I could do that for other people. But small events, I could see where it would be like, it's challenging enough, but it's also fun and you can find joy in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding to have that impact on people, to give them the opportunity to participate in something, whether it's virtual or in person, it doesn't really matter, and whether it's a free education event or it's a luncheon that you're charging $50 a person for, they're going to walk away feeling uplifted and supported and have that positive feeling of community and connection. And that's powerful.
Oh, for sure. I could see it. I could see it because, I mean, at the end of the day, your entrepreneur pulled it off. She might have had, oh, you might have been doing like the brunt of the work, but like you said, we can't do it alone, right?
No.
And the reason why they do all their thank yous throughout their event, saying, I couldn't have done this without you, is because we can't do everything alone. So
Yeah.
that's great. And it's awesome that someone like you is there to help, and that you find joy in things like budgeting.
Right.
Not many people find joy in that.
Well, and it's funny, I don't wanna deal with the budget for my own business, I don't wanna look at my P&L for my business, but give me an event budget, and I'll just go to town. Give me an event checklist and timeline, and I'll be like, "Ooh, yes,
Well,
it's just
who
so
doesn't love
fun."
spending someone else's money? I mean, let's face it, right? When it's not your money, it's so much more fun, right? But when you're working and earning that money, it's hard to like let it go sometimes, right?
Yeah, it is hard to let it go, and it's just so and I love because she had already set her price for this particular event, and I was like, "Well, is that within your budget, to meet your goal for your budget?" She was like, "Oh, I haven't done a budget." So, it was really I know, "Ooh, okay." So we just picked a number. All right. Well, that's how 75% of people do it. And so when I was looking at it today and like she's like right on the mark for what she picked. So okay, I was like, "Oh, good. Okay, so we're not going to have any sort of drastic adjustments.
Oh,
We're
that's really
in that
good.
sweet spot," which is really exciting, to see that she picked a number out of the air, but it worked out.
That's great. That's great. I love that. It's, well, I mean, I guess at the beginning of your business, to set a budget, like, if you already don't have much of a revenue, then setting a budget is pretty much impossible, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you need to bring people in. And so sometimes I remember growing up, I used to hear a lot, if you don't spend it, you won't make it, right? And so sometimes you kind of have to go out there and really overdo it in order for you to learn how to bring it in at a steady rate, right?
Yes.
And I mean, I would think events like that are perfect, right? Because like you
Yeah.
said, they can be small or they can be big. Now, I would think, you know, for big events, like what do you consider like a large event or a big event? Probably over 25 people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
would consider anything large pretty much over 150, but that's again, my experience is in the space of doing multi-day conferences for over 15,000. So I have a different perspective than most people, but for most people, large would be anything over 25 to 50. That would be considered large for them.
Yeah, yeah, I would think so, depending on their business. I mean, if you're, having like a big charity for like a hospital or something, then
Right.
25 is very little, unless you're expecting like donations of hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then, I mean, that's what would a nonprofit type of deal would be like, not for like the average entrepreneur.
Right.
So like, yeah. So, I really like that. That's really cool. I kind of wanted to touch a little bit about when you went into your business.
Mhm.
Now, most women, they kind of go into that, like they kind of fall into a low, right? Now you were basically convinced by God, you said. God kept telling you to open your own business.
Yep.
What did that look like for you? I would just like to, touch on that a little bit, because I'd like to hear how some women, and you, specifically right now, got into opening and starting and running a business of your own.
Yeah, it was just it kind of started in 2020 when everything was shut down and I had the opportunity to work from home and I wasn't having to work the ridiculous hours and I was actually able to do like things in my life that I enjoyed. And I was like, wow, I could get used to this. This is really nice. And so and around that time, lots of people were opening business. Lots of people were entering the online space. And so it just kind of was like this little idea there. And I was like, well, it's a lot of risk, right? Like, I don't really know anything about it. You don't get benefits, you don't get PTO. Like, it's just a lot of risk. I'm not interested. But it just kept coming up and kept coming up. And there were just multiple things that God did over the span of the 2 years um, to just keep putting it in front of me and keep pushing me in that direction. And then there were just some things that I just could not ignore. Like, okay, this was like a pretty big sign and like clearly this is a message and I need to be paying attention. And so finally I was in a very toxic work environment on top of it. And so I was like, I got to get out of this environment. I had already left a toxic environment and landed in another one. And I was like, do I just change jobs? And God was like, you're going to start a business. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And, but, okay. And so in July of 2022, I went to work part-time and started trying to figure out how to start a business. I took a course, an online course to set up a VA business. I don't consider myself necessarily a VA per se, but it's very similar what I do. At the time, I thought I might be a VA. But I'm kind of your event virtual assistant, I'm kind of in that space. And by November of 22, I launched and landed my first client, which was someone God had used earlier in the year to convince me to start my business. And here we are, I've had 4 clients total. I'm currently working with 3. I just signed a new consulting client yesterday. So it's had its ups, it's had its peaks, it's had its valleys. But I'm at that point where I've just been consistent with the networking. I've been consistent with showing up. I've been consistent with speaking and referrals are starting to come in and things are starting to grow and more calls are being booked. And so it really is about no matter what your business is, no matter what you want to do, it's just about being consistent and don't give up because you might be just about to turn that corner, right? How many business owners have quit and walked away and all they had to do was just wait, they were just about to turn that corner. And so there's been a couple of times that I've been like, I think I need to just go back to work and find a job and get some steady income. And, looking at the savings going down, the credit card bills going, you're just like, oh, what am I doing? And but then now I'm at that point where I'm like, I'm about to turn that corner. And if I had quit 2 months ago, if I had given up 6 months ago, I would have felt like a failure. I would have given up on myself and more importantly, given up on God because he clearly said, this is the plan I have for you. And I'm going to use this business to grow my kingdom. And so I'm like, okay, but could you send me some clients?
Can you send me a business plan and
Could you
all the
help a
stuff
little?
in between?
But when you look back with hindsight, you can see every time that he's provided every time.
And he
And
will,
so-
right?
and he will.
He will continue to do that. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. You know, it's faith, right? It's no matter what you do in your life, if you have faith, it will work out, right? And if
Yeah.
it's not going to, like, you're going to get the signs, right? And he's going to send signs in different ways, right? It's almost like when your body's not feeling right, it will tell you, right? It
Yep.
may not be in English, but it will tell you. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
I really
Absolutely.
love that. I really, really love that. So what would you offer to our listeners about starting their own business to start off with?
Um, if that is in your heart, if you keep coming back to that, if that is that little seed that's been planted and it just is keeps niggling away at you, because a lot of times we have ideas and you're like, I don't know, and it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. Just do it. Take the don't You don't have to go all in. You don't have to know all the steps. Just take that first step. And maybe that's, reaching out to a score advisor in your community and building a business plan and looking at some options that you have. Whatever that first step is for you, just do it. Because then
They
that
can't.
first step is going to lead to that second step and then the third step. And then the next thing you're going to be the next big thing. So just take the first step.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And I mean, event planning, I mean, obviously it's your thing, right? You've been doing
Yep.
it for how many years did you say you were doing it?
24.
Yeah, so I mean, the experience comes, right?
Yep.
You might be new at business, but you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, and that's what matters. And that's what customers are looking for. The clients that are coming to you, they want you to know what you're doing, and that's what matters the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll figure it out. I mean, the thing is, I've been doing events for 24 years, Tina, but I learn something every time I do one. And I have said for a long time now, if I ever have an event where I don't learn something from it, it's time to retire because I've obviously overstayed my welcome. And
Okay.
it's going to be the same in your business. Every single day is going to bring a new challenge, and every single day is going to bring a new lesson, and you will always be learning, growing, and you will have to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you're going to be a business owner.
I love that. That's one thing. It's kind of one of those affirmations that I use, get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. I do have a hard time with it. I will be honest, right? I'm telling the world I am a little bit uncomfortable getting uncomfortable, but at the same time I know that's the only way to move forward. It's the only way, because you can't go anywhere when you're taking the same baby steps day after day after day, right?
No, growth does not happen in the comfort zone. It just
Right.
doesn't. And so if you're going to grow, and as a business owner, you're going to constantly be growing for as long as you own your business, so that means you will always be uncomfortable. And so
Yeah.
you have to get real comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I sometimes struggle with that. There are days I'm like, I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be in my pajamas. I don't want to have to do anything out of my wheelhouse.
Well, there is that, okay, so if you're in a meeting, if you have to see people, yes, you need to, that's the number one thing, is you have to prepare for that. But that's not to say that you can't do business in your pajamas,
Oh no,
right?
I do
I mean, if
business in
you're
my
going to send
pajamas
an
a lot.
email, right, right, especially working from home, right?
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and working on Zoom, you just have to prepare from the waist up. You don't have to worry about, if you're wearing underwear, like those commercials during COVID, right? They were doing Zoom calls and the men were walking around in their underwear. Well, that's kind of reality. I mean, I like to prepare, right? I like to be prepared, but as a stylist, I match, no matter, even if they are pajamas, everything is matched, and it's a complete ensemble, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, it's you have to be comfortable no matter what, right? Yes, you're going to be meeting people that you're going to have to be a little bit vulnerable, and I'm sure that's one thing that you've noticed, right? Because when you're working for someone else,
Yep.
you don't really have to talk about you talk about the business, and if it's not yours, you don't have to say a whole lot, right? But when it's your own, you have to be willing to share with
Yep.
whoever it is you're dealing with, right? Like if you're
Absolutely.
planning something, if you're planning an event, you need to be able to say to that person that you're planning for what you've been through, so she can be a little bit more relaxed and comfortable with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to have a relationship with all of my clients. I don't want to just be a transaction where you pay me, I plan your event, and we all go our separate ways, right? I want to have a relationship with all of my clients, and and for it to be a long-term thing, right? I don't want to be one event and done. And if that's the case, then that's fine. But the next time you're thinking about who do I want you to think about? I want you to think about me the next time an event pops up on your calendar. You want to do an event. So,
Right.
and in order to do that, you have to be transparent, you have to be authentic, you have to be vulnerable and show them who you really are, because that's the only way to build relationships.
100%. If they don't know you, they can't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they won't like you.
Right.
Yeah.
No, like, and trust. Those are
Yeah.
the three keys. And that's the key to events as well, because if people don't know, like, and trust you, and some events are about building that know, like, and trust. But if you want to go into those bigger events where you're having conferences, you're having retreats, you're having people travel to come and spend time with you, they have to know, like, and trust you, or they're not going to come.
Right. Right. It's not a one-off thing. Yeah.
Right.
You have to have a relationship with them to some degree. Oh, I really like this. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's new for me. My husband has owned his own business before we were married. So my dad owned his own business, right? And a lot of my, extended family have owned their own business. So it's not new to me, but it's new to the degree that I don't know what I'm doing. Right? Like I didn't go to school for this, right? This is
Right.
all new for me. I mean, I know my husband runs his own business, but I'm not involved. So I had no idea, right? And I didn't want to ask him, which was probably a big mistake on my part, but he has a cement company, right? Cement and coaching are two different businesses, right? So I'm
Yes.
like, there's nothing he can really help me with, which was my mistake. But at the same time, like, I'm sure there's things, like at one point I did ask him, they say that I need a mentor, right? So, you could be my mentor, right? And he was like, yeah, sure. We can have, monthly meetings and you can tell me, what you have problems with. And I was like, okay, that meeting never happened. And we're 5 years in, right? He has no idea what I'm struggling with, right? And then, like, how is he supposed to know? He can't help me, right? Every once in a while, I'm like, do you have a few dollars? Like, and then he's like, Tina, but that's all included, right? That's all part of entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
And so, and that, I mean, you don't have to, okay, so let's say we'll talk about this. I know that you're not like the, business goddess. You are a goddess in event planning, but we're not talking really about starting up a business. But it takes a lot of pre-planning and knowledge to some degree. It doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes knowledge and will, I guess, right? My mom used to always say, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want something bad enough, you're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, you obviously had the knowledge for your business, right? I really didn't know what I was doing, but you have started from, you didn't know the business side of it, but you knew what you were doing.
Right.
And
Right.
then created the business off that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to help people. That was it. That's where I was, I wanted to help women that were in the same shoes as me. Right. And that's all I knew. That's all I wanted to do.
And sometimes that's all you need. All you need is that passion. Is that one little seed of passion of, this is the change that I want to make in the world. I want to help people with this problem because I faced it and I solved it. And you can take that little seed and grow it into a 6-figure, 7-figure business, depending on what need that you're feeling. And how many people need it, right? But you really have to start with the passion and the will, and then get that knowledge to get your foundation set. And some of the knowledge you're just going to figure out the hard way. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. That's just part of being a business owner. You're going to make mistakes. But get yourself in the right rooms, get the mentors, be in those masterminds, go where there are women that are in the same space and have already walked that path, and learn from them. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's another thing as women that we hesitate to do, is ask for help, because we really do think we have to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah.
And we really don't. There's a whole world. I mean, the number of women that I have met after starting this business that I would have never met, like yourself. I mean, I would have never met you working in my nonprofit in Las Vegas. So
Right.
I just look at the number of women I've met across the world that are now part of my network, that I could reach out to and be like, hey, do you know how to fix this problem? Hey, can you help me with this? And the support is always so positive. There's always women that are willing to share their wisdom and give you that advice and mentor you in whatever space that they know.
Right. Right. Well, and that's one thing with women. They like to share their knowledge and they'd like to help, right? They want to help you. And if they don't, like if they just want to compete with you, which in my experience, there's very far and few between. There hasn't been really any woman that I've met that is like, no, I'm going to do that. Like, that's my job, right?
Yep.
You know, and if you find those women, they're not in the same circles as you, right? At least from what I've noticed, like they're not networking. They're not doing what I'm doing because I need the help and I know I need the help.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my way of reaching out, is going to these networking meetings. And, so yeah, I agree with you. Women are there
I
to
think
help.
there are a very small percentage, based on my experience, a very small percentage of women that are very competitive. They're not going to share their knowledge. It's all for me. And if you run across those women, more power to them. That's their thing. I wish them nothing but success. They're just not from my circle. And I'll put somebody else in that spot in my circle. And it's totally fine. No hard feelings. But in my mind, that's not how you get ahead. That's just,
Right.
it's just not, that's not going to bring the right energy that I want to be associated with.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And there is that world for them, because obviously they're doing it, right?
Yep.
But for the most part, like you and I, we need to have that party. We need to have that group that is there to support and needs our support as well. Yeah. This is awesome. Is there anything else you might want to say to our listeners about, either event planning or starting or running a business?
I will say, well, like I said, if you have that idea and you really want to do it, and go for it, start small, work your way up, do the things. And as you're building your business, think about how you can incorporate events, because they are such a powerhouse way to grow your business in a profitable way. Think about, and if you're like, I don't even know what kind of events I could have, well, think about Phoenix Collaborations when you get to that point, because I'm more than happy to get on a call and help you brainstorm what you can do. And really and truly, when it comes to events in your business, the only limits that you have are your creativity and your budget. That's it. The world is your oyster. There are so many things that you can do with events. They can be from 5 people to hundreds of thousands of people. And if that's your goal, to get to hundreds of thousands of people, I would love to help you, because I would love to see that happen, So
For sure.
just go for it. Just go, believe in yourself. You have what it takes to do it. Go for it.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Tina. This has been a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.